You said using the podcast, but you might be able to do this with your newsletter, and you're starting to see it, even the latest news on like Ryan Reynolds, where you're using something that has made you well known and then pointing that attention at other businesses or things that you have equity in. And that's the new model. It's no longer, hey, we're going to get some famous person to advertise our product. The new model is that person's either going to own part of your business or probably start that business. How do you think about that? Are we at the very beginning of this shift in how business is done? And when I think about this podcast over the next 10 years and people ask me about it, I'm thinking so much further along is like, this is the tool that is going to be used as my main driving force for every other thing I do in business, personal, whatever it may be. And you certainly know what that's like with, the community that you've built and what you might be able to offer them and the value that you'll get down the road. So how do you think about that from like where we're headed in the business world?
I want to say 5 things at the same time. That's my curse. I wasn't going to go in 5 directions. I think it's super, super interesting. And I think there's been an inflection point a few years ago, but now people are starting to realize it, where, they say that CAC is the new rent, right? Customer acquisition costs, right? So in the old days, there's 3 channels on the TV. There's a few big magazines. Everybody sees the same things. You're a big CPG brand. You buy some ad in there, you reach everybody, or the middle of the bell curve, right? And that's fine. That doesn't work anymore because everything has fragmented into a million small niches. And so getting people's attention is more valuable than ever because it's harder than ever, right? If you advertise on one of the big channels now, you don't reach most people. You may not reach the most ideal customers for what you're doing, right? And so if you can find someone who has a relationship with those people, all of a sudden the attention that they have is much more valuable to you because it's much more targeted, right? It's not the middle of the bell curve randomly where you're talking about cars to 12 years old and you're kind of missing the mark all over. And so that's one thing, right? I think if you own, I don't know the word own, but if you have an audience that you've earned because you give them tons of value, you're building goodwill with that audience. And so maybe you have a paid product or newsletter or whatever, and you're getting some of that value back and make a living from it. But I feel like the best creators, they give so much more value than they extract, right? That's why when someone that you like so much has a product, right? Jocko Willink is making jeans and boots and this and books and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay extra for that. But that's kind of part of the goodwill that they've given me, right? They've been entertaining me or educating me or whatever for years, right? I'm reading Liberty's newsletter and I feel like he's saving me many hours a month because he's, finding good stuff that it would take me a long time to find, or maybe there's a 10-page article and it's going to give me the highlight in one paragraph. And so I'm saving time. That's worth something to me. So it's building goodwill over time. And maybe I have no plans for that, but maybe if I start something else and people are like, I just want to support you generally, and this is a way to support you. So there's going to be people that kind of become channels, right? So a third party is going to come to you and say, I want to reach your audience. Let's make a deal, right? But the highest use of this is people like Reynolds or Joe Rogan has done this with most ads are companies he has equity in, right? And so it's like David's advertising his own subscription podcast. If you're aligned and can vertically integrate that, you're going to be able to not only create something that's better for your audience because you know them intimately, right? So the third party advertiser may be an okay fit, but it's never going to be as interesting to the audience as if you're like these are my friends, right? I'm going to do something really cool for them, right? So I feel like Jocko, he knows his audience, right? So when he's making jujitsu gear, that's a great fit, right? So and the market for programmatic advertising is getting much more efficient. So a few years ago, you could buy a bunch of Facebook ads or something, and your app is going to get tons of download, and you get tons of value. But over time, as these channels get more and more known, these platforms in the middle are extracting almost all of the value. there, right? It's like the rent is rising and rising until you almost make no money. So trying to get to an audience through these platforms is kind of like not a dead end, but it's not going to be as good as if you can organically grow your audience, right? So if you're in real estate and you want to talk to people interested in real estate, what would you do, right? The best way is to build your own podcast and have the direct relationship with all of these people interested in the same thing you are. So I feel like there's a great future ahead for like creators who can like genuinely get at the top of like every single niche has its own little power law, right? It used to be the giant power law where everything was on ABC and CBS and whatever, but now it's all fragmented in all these things. And if you can like through good work get at the top of your tiny niche, I think that's going to be incredibly valuable because the absolute number of people may be small, but the intensity and the affinity of the relationship with the people is going to be incredibly high, right? So I'd much rather have, as Kevin Kelly would say, 1,000 true fans than 100,000 random followers, casually interested kind of, right? That's not very valuable anymore.